Hey everyone, it's Dr. Ramani. Welcome back to this YouTube channel on narcissism and narcissistic relationships and healing from narcissistic relationships. So let's talk about healing, and specifically the 8 biggest barriers to healing from narcissistic relationships and how to move those barriers out of the way. So I am going to start my video with a very simple premise. Anyone can heal from narcissistic abuse. Is it going to be harder or take much longer for some people? Yes. Does it go quicker for some people? Yeah. And for many of us, is there, especially those of us who still have contact with narcissistic folks, are there still some dark nights of the soul? Yes. Healing doesn't mean that you walk out into the world like some shiny-faced positivity fairy full of trust and love and openness. When you heal, you walk into the world a little wiser, more cautious, more discerning, and aware that you have been through something, and recognize that you are stronger and wiser as a result. But as we use this channel as a place to also unpack my book, and we veer into the part of the book that is about healing, let's talk a little bit about some of the stuff that makes healing so difficult. Folks healing from narcissistic abuse have been gaslighted for years. They often learn to gaslight themselves. And if they aren't healing, feeling better, or getting stronger, or stuck in the rumination cycle, feelings of guilt and pity, or even just miss the narcissistic person, they will be quick to say, there is something wrong with me. So I was recently trying to fix something in my house. I tried everything I could. By luck, the electrician happened to be there fixing something else. And I asked him if he would take a look. I was convinced it was my stupidity, which is why I could not make this thing work. And I said to him, I am so dumb. I am sure that I'm just pressing the wrong button. And he looked at it for about a minute or two, and he's like, no, it's broken. It doesn't work. And there's nothing you could have done to make it work, and he replaced it. That reflexive response, that it's an us thing, it's a me thing, that's why the switch wasn't working. And we don't stop to think that it's something else that needs to be deprogrammed and fixed. Now, whether it's, like I said, a light switch or someone raging at us, to keep coming back to the, it's not you. So understanding these barriers to healing can help you understand why healing feels like a vertical climb. And as I go through these, please take a moment to reflect on which ones may be holding you back. And we can peek in at some of the ways to address these barriers. So the first barrier to healing are the enablers. The enablers are the people in your life who keep saying, well, are they really that bad? Or maybe that's just who they are. The enablers are often not narcissistic. They may be. But they can also be people who are still very much in your lives, people you care about, and whose opinions may still matter to you. But you know how long it took you to understand narcissism and what it does. Some people never get it, or they don't want to give up the status quo. The enablers may be the ones who keep questioning you, not the other person who's behaving narcissistically, but you. On radical acceptance, on disengaging, on your new way of seeing the situation. They may even defend the narcissistic person. And the enabler's questioning of you may play on your self-doubt. Because when we first get to radical acceptance, it's very, very fragile in the beginning. So when an enabler is questioning you, especially if it's someone you do care about, it can be enough to push you backwards. Keep in mind, too, that the enabler may also be emboldening the narcissistic person. So what are you supposed to do when this happens, right? It doesn't mean if you have enablers in your life and you don't cut everyone off. It doesn't work that way. But you may have to be more discerning and perhaps even a little more disengaged from people who are doubting your process of healing or still championing the narcissist or just wanting everyone to get along. It may mean taking a little break from the enablers, even as they tell you, oh, here you go, you're just cutting everyone out now, right? That's what they'll say. But especially in the early phases of healing, as you are finding your stride, a little disengagement from the enablers, from the folks who are leaving you off balance could help. Number 2 barrier is when you continue to engage fully with the narcissistic person. Once radical acceptance really begins in earnest, the one thing you will realize is that the merry-go-round of confusing conversations will never end. Just because you radically accept doesn't mean, obviously, that the narcissistic person will magically get that. Not everyone can leave these relationships. I fully understand that, and I truly believe you can still heal. But when you continue to talk with them, engage, explain, defend, you know what that looks like. This is a slow disengagement. Basically, you just don't get into it with them anymore. You don't bring them your good news. You don't turn to them for advice. What do? You don't go deep. Remember, you don't defend. You don't engage. You don't explain. You don't personalize. You slowly step back. You find other people to turn to. The more you try to believe that I fully get it, but I'm also fully going to engage with the narcissistic person, it doesn't work. Radical acceptance is also radically accepting that it can't be the way it once was. If you're going to heal, you're going to have to engage with it differently. Number 3 barrier to healing is rushing your healing. Despite the people out there who may hawk programs like Heal from Narcissistic Abuse in 4 weeks, it doesn't work that way. Listen, I'm selling a book. But as far as I'm concerned, I wish I could say, heal from narcissistic abuse in a week. This book is a kickstart to healing. It's a fellow traveler. It's a guidebook. But the book's also a recognition that this is a process. And healing sometimes happens in a few months, sometimes a few years, sometimes longer. This book is not just a quick recipe of do this and this and this, and then you will heal. It's more complex than that, because each of your stories and experiences and the nature of the narcissistic people you dealt with might have been a little bit different. And this can relate to a lot of factors. You know, for example, the speed with which we heal. It relates to how long the relationship was, how much support you have, the resources you have, the depth of your trauma bonding. But setting a calendar, this idea of, I intend to be fully over this by the summer, or in a year this is all going to be behind me, or this is all going to heal in 6 weeks, that doesn't acknowledge that it is different for everyone. And if you don't feel better in whatever the period of time is, 6 weeks or 6 months or whatever, there's a risk that you blame yourself, again, but you blame yourself for not healing right. Barrier number 4 is getting stuck in the, I'm gonna show them. When you heal, this has to be a decision for yourself. And a big healing mistake or healing barrier is, I'll show them. I'm gonna heal and I'm gonna show them how great I am without them. Listen, I am 100% you showing them how good you're gonna be. Living well without them is a win. However, your healing cannot be linked to them, because then you are still being driven by them. And if you see that the narcissistic person is moving on or just getting through life seemingly fine without you, and perhaps they're not taking note of your process or your progress in healing, there's a risk then that them not noticing you still feels like a setback. Healing is about individuation. You no longer living in their reality, meeting their needs. They cannot be a reference point for your healing. They've been a reference point for long enough. Healing happens when you become increasingly indifferent, I suppose, to what they think. You remain focused on your growth. And then when you do heal and you round the bend and you're living a life that feels authentic and happier, enjoy it if they see it then, but don't let their seeing it and noticing it drive the process. Barrier number 5 is the belief that no contact is a magic pill. No contact is often touted as the answer to healing, as though ending the relationship and cutting that narcissistic person out is the only path. It's definitely a path, but it's not the path. And it's not always possible. You can't always go no contact with a colleague you still work with, or certainly not with someone you co-parent with, or with selected family members. And if you keep ruminating and looking at the social media feed of someone, but you're just saying, I'm no contact, but you're still looking at their social media, honestly, that may be worse for you than really genuinely and authentically being disengaged and focused on radical acceptance, even if you sometimes have to run into them. Gritting your teeth and going no contact is not going to make the healing move faster. Focusing on the you part, staying with the grief, fostering support, feeling that grief and working it through is actually better for your healing than putting all of your bandwidth on no contact and still spending your time ruminating. Barrier number 6 is shame. Too many survivors of narcissistic relationships feel foolish and say to themselves, I'm the one who stayed too long. I picked this person. I made excuses. I still hope they will change. And shame often means that people blame themselves, isolate, and punish themselves more. Remember, it's not you. You did nothing wrong. You met someone, you loved someone, you care about someone. There's nothing shameful about that. Wanting someone that you care or cared about to change, or hoping to be treated better, there is nothing shameful about that. In a narcissistic relationship, obviously, you often have to sort of live in the light of their projected shame or the darkness of their projected shame. Ironically, so many survivors would clearly see that the narcissistic person is the one who behaved badly if you were hearing someone else's story about a narcissistic relationship. Having empathy for someone, loving someone, and hoping someone can be better are not shameful. It's painful and difficult to radically accept and let go of the hopes around family, love, history, and future. That's normal and human. And understanding that you are not alone can help with that sense of shame. Barrier number 7 is talking with people who don't quite understand what this whole narcissism thing is and trying to convince them. A big barrier to healing is the sense that other people do not get it, and in a way, wanting others to know how difficult this relationship is, right? So you may be talking to enablers or other people you know or anyone, and they may be dubious because they don't understand this, or they may question you. And you may keep trying to prove to someone that you were talking to that this relationship you were in, that this person is narcissistic, and you want this person you're talking to understand and understand what you're going through. It's not your job to convince others, but it is part of your healing to seek out people who can be good listeners, who can offer empathic support. Feeling that you have to convince others of why you left or why a relationship was unhealthy also runs the risk of reinforcing the self-blaming patterns, as though your experience is only valid if other people buy into what happened to you, fully get it. Talking with people who are supportive is great, but putting yourself in the role of trying to convince other people that the dynamics and the patterns in this relationship are unhealthy or narcissistic, that's even more unhealthy, and it can impede your healing. Stick to talking to folks who get it and get you. Number 7, talking with people who don't get it and trying to convince them. That's a big barrier, right? So a big barrier to healing is the sense that other people don't get it because they don't, but feeling like you want other people to know like what narcissism is and what happened to you and how difficult the relationship has been, especially when it's a narcissistic person who's able to show up really charming in public. So you may end up talking to enablers, people you know, anyone, and they may in fact be dubious. They may question you, and you may still find yourself in the cycle of trying to prove to someone you were talking to that this person you were in a relationship with is narcissistic. And again, you want them to understand what it was about, the gaslighting, all of it. It's not your job to convince other people. It is part of your healing, however, to seek out people who can offer empathic support. Now, feeling that you have to convince other people of why you left or why a relationship was unhealthy can reinforce the self-blaming patterns, as though your experience is only valid if other people will validate it. Listen, talking with people who are supportive is great. It's essential to healing. But putting yourself in the role of trying to convince others that this relationship was an unhealthy one is even more unhealthy, and it can even impede your healing. Stick to talking with the folks who get it and get you. Number eight, believing that if I don't leave, I won't heal. Plenty of people who stay in these relationships still heal. It's a different process, but it happens. These are people who have to be very clear in their reasons for staying, and who remain armed with radical acceptance and figure out the workarounds. But if you truly believe that the only way to heal is to leave, and you can't leave, you will be stuck. And in fact, even worse than stuck, you'll feel hopeless. Sometimes leaving can create even more problems that you cannot manage, and these can include family court issues, financial issues, cultural factors, safety issues. And if you feel that staying is necessary, but that healing is not possible if you stay, then it can be easy to get pulled back into toxic cycles, because you may believe that, well, I'm in this now and healing isn't possible. And so the cognitive dissonance is going to kick back in, the radical acceptance is going to go out the window, and you already know the rest of that story. People often find themselves better equipped to do meaning and purpose-oriented work when they make the choice that is most authentic to them. And that, by the way, is what healing is actually about. So make the choice about the relationship that feels right now, from a place of radical acceptance, whether that's staying or going. And yes, either way, you will heal. Now I'm just sharing 8 barriers with you. There's more I get into in the book, so this is meant to be a tease to give it a look. The link to buy it is in the video notes. Now these barriers to healing are there for most folks going through healing, so recognizing them and pushing past them is essential. You can heal. You will heal. And as we keep peeking into the book, you will learn the how and how to be patient with yourself as you navigate the process of healing. But not making it about rules and a schedule for healing and trying to revenge heal. By doing that, you clear a pathway to healing. So I just want to let you know, I believe you will. You will get there. And always remember, it's not you.